Hi and welcome to a different type of video. And well, this time I will just talk about something interesting about what's really going on. And I just want to talk about the situation in Georgia and the region because there's a lot to talk about. And it's interesting for you to probably know. And I also will make a conclusion from that. Yes. So mainly I will focus on uh, economics basically, because that's how Georgia is the most affected now in terms of economics, and situation is kind of difficult, and obviously for the same reason as everywhere, and it's inflation. The main effect of the war also here is inflation, but there's also more effects because obviously Georgia is very close to Russia and Ukraine, and Georgia is very dependent on what's happening there, and I will show you why. And well, this is a paper from my university. I even know one of these guys who wrote it. So it just talks about the effects and economic consequences on Georgia. So, well, the main shock on the economy was basically caused by the sanctions. I think the biggest impact was because of the sanctions, and Georgia actually didn't join all of them, which is smart because the Georgian economy is really dependent on Russia, and also for sure there's political reasons. Probably Georgian government, they're also like under pressure kind of, and they try to not piss the Russians off too much. Although to be honest, I think at this point the risk of war in Georgia, it's low, at least for like the near term or so, because it looks like it's not going as they really planned in Ukraine. And well, but still at the moment it also looks like it could go on for longer, that they kind of change their strategy. And I saw a video that they might, just try to conquer all the Black Sea coastline, basically. But yes, so at least probably the physical war coming to Georgia, it's not likely, and also for other reasons. Yes, but first of all, let's talk about this main shock which happened on the economy, on the world economy, and well, the sanctions they caused. Well, first of all, like they caused a lot of disruptions in trade, and also one reason is because Russia was excluded from SWIFT, and so there was a shock on the Russian ruble price, of course. But as you might know, the Russian rubles, it came straight back, and it's good that I kept my rubles. But who cares at this point? But also the Ukrainian hryvnia, actually they didn't even have such a shock as the Russian ruble. They're quite strong still comparatively, and the Georgian lari. Also, they had a shock of like 15%. Lari was quite strong in the last time, and well, it went up 15%, and then it came straight back. So again, the lari is very strong compared to the dollar. But oh, it's frozen. Well, why it's frozen? Okay. Well, yeah, and I will talk about why the Georgian lari also is this strong, and it's the direct consequence of the main consequence of what you will see in Georgia, and I will talk about it later. But first, let's talk about the Georgian dependence on the commerce with Russia. And here you can see that Russian share of Georgian exports, it increased in the last 10 years, like a lot. And yes, here you can see um, yes, the export increased to Russia. FDI is not really important. Remittances, it also decreased in importance, but still there's a lot of Georgians in Russia, hundreds of thousands, and also in Ukraine there's tens of thousands of Georgians. So this is also another factor for sure, which is affecting. And tourism, yes, there's a lot of tourists from especially Russia. Still, Georgia is very popular. Yes, and we will see how dependent Georgia is on exporting its products to Russia and Ukraine. It makes up the biggest share of the most important stuff, and actually the biggest share of national income is here, these like metals, manganum, and yeah, especially like manganum and this stuff. Here, obviously, wine, yeah, alcohol, mineral water. Yes, and also Georgia produces fertilizer in Rustavi here, and it's the same fertilizer that exploded in Beirut, actually. Then Georgia is also very dependent on Russian imports, and also Ukrainian, but much more Russian. And the thing is, it's dependent on the most essential stuff, and that's the food, the grains. Literally, almost 90% comes from Russia. And you know, I will show you here, for example. This is lentils from like a Georgian supermarket brand, kind of. It's packed in Georgia, but the stuff, it comes from Russia. And also here, tsibura, which is buckwheat, which is grechka. If you don't know what it is, probably you don't have it in your country, but you're definitely missing out, because this is better than normal grains. I really like it. And it obviously, it also comes from Russia, especially from the Altai region. I realized, I looked up, and basically everything comes from there. So yes, Georgia is very dependent on the most essential food products, and here you can see that, yeah, more than half of the Georgian basically diet it comes from grains from Russia. So Georgians are eating Russian food basically, mostly. And yes, well, obviously, so the most important yeah, shock on the world market was, of course, on the wheat price, and then oil and gas, obviously. And wheat price and all the other grains, it's very essential for most of the world, yeah, because most people are dependent on this basic goods. And obviously, like 1/3, I think, at least, of the production comes from Russia and Ukraine. And yes, then oil and gas, obviously, that exploded, and also this caused everything to explode. But in general, so the inflation is very high. There's a special indicator for Georgia, which is the Khachapuri index. It's like the Big Mac index, but with this famous Georgian dish, which is like kind of essential. and it increased 30%, more than 30% since last year, this month. And I think this is like the average of inflation of the most essential goods, of the basic consumption goods. I think this is realistic, like 30% inflation rate, and this affects most of the people. So yes, it's insane. Every time you go shopping here, you will see that something got more expensive, and yes, and at the same time, yes, of course, if the exchange rate doesn't go up, also like foreigners are affected, like we. But well, there's nothing compared to how yeah, the situation for Georgians with incomes, which even if they get adjustment of like 10%, it's nothing. Even the official inflation rate is like is more than 10%, definitely. I think around 15%. Yes, but the real inflation rate for most of the people, it's like 30%. I know also it's very high in Germany, but yes, here people are much more affected by it still. But one thing, I have to say, there's no shortages of anything. Like there is everything. At least you can't really see it. Everything is full. You can buy everything, which is not the case in many other countries like US and Germany. I definitely know from Germany as well that there's shortages of essential goods, but now there's no shortages here in Georgia of anything. Yes, so obviously you better stock up on essential food. If not for shortages, then obviously because everything will be more expensive. So definitely you should buy a lot of like basic goods. Yes. So, but now a different factor which nobody really expected this much, but this is what is really also affecting living conditions here, or this is also what you see with your own eyes here if you're in Georgia. And that's a huge influx of Russian migrants. There's actually only like a few thousand probably refugees from Ukraine, and it says they come from the areas which are basically already controlled by Russia. So the only way they have to escape is through Russia, and they rather go to Georgia. And yes, but the situation here for refugees, it's very bad, obviously, because economy is so bad. Well, also Georgia itself, it still has hundreds of thousands of well, internal refugees, basically. And yes, it's very difficult situation. So basically, there's not really many Ukrainian refugees, but there's like 10 times more Russian migrants. So basically, the whole country is now full with Russians who escaped the, well, the things that changed since the war. And of course, many have to escape the sanctions because they have businesses or a job abroad. And well, also we kind of know what yes, how is the internal climate in Russia. They're cracking down even more on like anyone who is protesting anything. And well, yeah, this is normal in times of war, also in Ukraine. And so, yes, and you can imagine what happens if suddenly tens of thousands of Russians, there's like 1% of the population here, suddenly they come. And it's people with mostly like higher income. And so first of all, okay, they consume a lot. There's huge demand for lari, and this is obviously why the lari is so strong now. And in addition to that, it's also the normal tourist season. So there's also a lot of for other tourists, foreign tourists. Yes, but this Russian migration, it really caused a shock in the rent prices, and they went insane. So basically, the rents for like standard apartments, especially in the center where I also live, like I'm very lucky to have an apartment, and I'm also lucky that I'm not kicked out, because a lot of, I know from some people they get kicked out because if you don't pay, if you still pay the old rent, I still pay the old rent. I pay around $200 for like the standard apartment, like 35 square meters. It's not very modern, but it's very good for this price, and I still pay this old price. But now the rents they suddenly doubled to even triple. Probably now already it went down or so, but at least 50% increase in the last 2 months. And well, that's insane. Like if I get kicked out, like I also have a problem. Like now it's really hard to find anything in the good areas. You have to go to the to the ghettos, to the shit areas, which might also be okay. Like it's not too bad in the whatever outskirts, but I like to be in the center too, you know, because it's very convenient, and it's still nicer. And well, so this is what you can see with your own eyes. Like there's the whole city is full with well, mostly Russians, but of course also Ukrainians, Belarusians also. Belarusians are also escaping uh, for kind of similar reasons like for Russians. And and then there's also a lot of other foreigners who come to Georgia now. So there's a huge demand for Georgia at the moment. Yes, Georgia is very affected. Yes, economically, and yeah, but of course it's all about inflation. That's the main thing everywhere, and yeah, also here. So yes, so definitely you should get prepared. Like first of all, of course, or okay, let's say first of all, stock up on essential food. Yes, just to, you know, hedge against inflation and probably shortages. You don't know what will be the disruptions, and there can be still a lot of disruptions. And yes, also you don't know on the infrastructure. So Georgia, I think it's fine with electricity because there's a lot of hydro power, and yes, but still the infrastructure is not the best. Like literally just yesterday, they cut the water in like the whole center. I was in 3 different places and there was no water uh, for like half a day at least. And when I had water again in the morning, like it was very low pressure. So things like this happen quite often, especially with the water for some reason. They cut the water quite often. And electricity, it's kind of fine. There's like very short power cuts time to time, like every few months, I would say. It depends on your area. In some areas it's much more, but here it's kind of okay with the electricity. And also with the gas, you could see that actually Georgia is not this dependent on Russian oil and gas because they decreased it already a lot since the last like war, and now I think it's mostly Azerbaijani gas and maybe also Kazakh gas. I can show you my yeah, you can see this is my stove, and above is the gas counter and the gas pipes made of plastic which are made in Iran. Yeah, why not? And it says it comes from Kazakhstan, I think so, or I don't know, at least this thing. So yeah. So yes, definitely get prepared. And then obviously, you have to make you know, don't be dependent on this shit. Like don't you have to take a risk to somehow try to outperform inflation. You have to take a risk. Be smart with cryptos and that stuff. Although yeah, you need a real strategy and yeah, whatever. Yes, but I will not talk about this. You can figure it out yourself how to prepare, how to try to protect yourself from inflation. I have my own ways, but yes, just be smart and prepare yourself. Don't be the one who's now just ignorant and just consuming like normal and things that things will be fine. No, you better prepare yourself now because I have seen it, especially in Lebanon. I can see how bad things can get in very short time in a somewhat developed country. And yes, this already happened in Georgia, but it easily can happen again. And especially if you are in the West, you are not used to anything not working, except maybe like the trains in Germany. They're not good. But in general, like in terms of infrastructure, like I for my whole life in Germany, there was maybe like one or two very short power cuts. That's everything. Like everything is always working in Germany. It used to be, but now Germany, they have very big problems. Like probably even bigger than Georgia in some ways. Like when it comes to the energy infrastructure and that stuff. And it's funny that in the West, in Germany and US, there's shortages, but here there is no shortages. It's really weird. But of course, yeah, definitely be smart and get prepared, and don't be the one who's just stupidly consuming and isn't changing any of his habits. I also saw this in Lebanon. People they weren't prepared at all, but this also like the mentality because yeah, there's always been like you don't know what will happen next. So you don't really think for the future and yeah, so many people were dependent on the system. They trusted the banks more or less. um, they didn't get you know, like proper, how do you say, yeah, they didn't store food and like essential food. Like come on, if you know you can start to see the collapse, just, and if you're a middle income household, you can invest like and buy so much essential food. And yes, although it's very difficult in Lebanon, of course, if you don't even have electricity and yeah, whatever. Yes, but yes, so be smart and don't don't get screwed by what will happen next. And things are not getting better. Maybe now, I don't know, like nobody can predict really what will happen. But probably also at some point we will enter like a proper recession, a proper global crisis again. And yes, then you better be prepared at least a bit, at least as much as you could. So okay, that's my thought about, you know, talking about something like interesting and productive. And yes, maybe I make more videos like this because I like talking about this, and I also like to yes, get ready. It's fun. It's fun because this is like my topics, you know, about economics, inflation, and I like this stuff much more than this pandemic nonsense. And yes, okay, that's it for now. See you who knows when.